Hey, good risings, y'all. Today is August 2nd. Happy Black August. We're in week 4 of the work-based learning program. And yeah, excited to be moving through. We're getting through the end of the first section, history, communication, and facilitation. After that, we'll be going into governance and planning, and then management and operations. So yeah, as y'all are doing the assignments to catch up, feel free to email or text me or if you have any questions or things you just want to talk about. We're going to be setting up that peer circle very soon, and this week will be another good foundational groundwork thing, moving us into there. We'll talk a bit about ways to facilitate meetings today, get some Q&A about meetings tomorrow. We will talk about and begin assessing our personal values and talk about how to weave those into collective values, which will result in day 16, where we're all going through and creating group agreements together. So we have shared expectations about how we're treating each other, how we're coming into the space, etc. So yeah. So I guess I'll kind of just get started. Anything you want to say, Ted?
No, just congratulations. Making it to month 2, week 4, and man, looking to dig deep into the facilitation. So yeah, let's get into it, Brother Greg.
So I'm gonna start us off with a video that starts to explain why it's good to work on facilitation skills and those kinds of things. Before I start the video, I want to give you all the prompt so you know what you're looking for in here. So the prompt, if you all want to write this down before you watch this video, which of the 5 types in the video do you tend to be? So I'll say that again. Which of the 5 types in the video do you tend to be? And which do you have the most trouble with? All right, so I will start this video. You'll get more context in a second. I'm sorry, y'all. I wasn't sharing my audio, so I'm gonna reshare. 1 second.
To be sure everyone knows it. Managing difficult meeting personalities. We've all spent way too much time in chaotic, draining, time-wasting meetings. Meetings can be ineffective for a number of reasons, and one of the most common culprits is difficult personalities. We've all seen them. The dominator. They're bullying the rest of the group with their aggressive personality. They feel strongly about almost everything, and they want to be sure everyone knows it. The mute. They're the opposite of the dominator. They almost never speak up. And as a result, the team isn't sure if they're really in agreement, if they're just too afraid to voice their own opinions, or completely checked out of the process and just mentally planning the best route home to beat traffic. The rambler. They haven't met a topic that they don't love to talk about. And when they give their input, it's almost always the long War and Peace version, when the team would much prefer the quick Cliff Notes version. They also take the group off into long-winded tangent discussions that really don't relate to the topic at hand. We want to save ourselves from their diatribe, but we just don't know how. The complainer. This is the one who complains about everything. They come to the meeting to vent about everything from no lotion in the bathroom to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And they not only drain crucial meeting time with their complaining, they also drag down team morale in the process. The slacker. They're just never prepared. Instead of coming to the meeting with their task completed, they always seem to show up with their flavor of the month excuse. They always have a reason why they couldn't just get to it, or better yet, they never realized it was assigned to them in the first place. If you have one or more of these difficult personalities in your meeting, it can quickly spiral downward into a nightmare. The good news is that there are specific facilitation techniques that anyone can learn to effectively address these difficult personalities and get your meeting back on track. Here are just a few examples. Let's take the meeting dominator. When someone starts to dominate, the leader's natural tendency is to try to shut them down. The danger, though, is that when we push on people, the visceral response is for them to push back. They often feel like they're not being heard or valued, so they need to make their point again, and again, and again. Instead of immediately trying to shut them down, consider the approach I call complement, document, and pivot. It might sound something like this. Jim, that's a really great point. I don't think we'd considered outsourcing the conference planning before, but I can definitely see the potential time and cost savings. I want to be sure we don't miss that point, so let's jot it down and try to generate a few more. Susan, I'm wondering if you have other ideas that also might help save time or cost. Another technique is the round robin technique. With this technique, instead of allowing everyone to comment on a topic or issue, you ask the group to comment one by one. And of course, if your dominator is sitting to your left, you'll start with the person sitting to your right. This way, the dominator will still get their turn to speak, but now that you've instituted a process, they will need to hold their comment until their turn. If you're interested in learning additional techniques for designing and running effective meetings,
Okay. Sneak peek into like what it's like to be a facilitator. She's talking more about the like difficulties of it. But this next reading that we're asking you to go through, like, I guess continues to talk about the difficulties, but, isn't moving at it through that, 5 difficult personality types. This is from, this is I guess, a selection from something that the Aorta Cooperative Facilitating company did. And they do a good job of like stating what the goal of facilitation is. Like also starting off by talking about how inefficient and ineffective meetings can leave people feeling drained, exhausted, or discouraged, rather than inspired and energized. And that good meetings help build strong, effective organizations and successful projects. And so even organizations with great meeting process inadvertently perpetuate barriers to full member participation and access to democratic participation. This happens through group dynamics of power, privilege, and oppression that often marginalize women, people of color, queer, trans, and gender nonconforming folks, people with disabilities, and those with limited access to the cultural cues and financial resources that come with class privilege. So whether or not you tend to act as a facilitator at meetings you attend, building your facilitation skills will help you make your meetings better, more inclusive, and more fully democratic. And the rest of this 4-page document is talking about tips and other things that we want to be aware of when going into like a facilitator role. So kind of like defining what facilitation is, talking about how it's making sure that the group as a whole is empowered. And so there are some things you can look out for when seeking to do that. They're talking about how facilitators are the ones like kind of keeping track of time, wanting to keep us, just on track. And there are some ways to do that. There are some don't do's, which often help make the facilitating process easier. So you're not both like a participant and the one trying to like referee. And so, yeah, like as you read through this document, I think you'll find a lot of good like tips. In this communication and culture section, you'll find out like what it means to bring diverse people together and like mindsets you should have. This tips and techniques section is about like ways to break people or invite people out of their ruts or like, you know, the kind of thought processes they were in before the meeting, helping them to like, you know, ground and focus, as well as like ways to, I guess, break up decision making so that like if there is a decision and there's a large group, like maybe groups of 2 or 3 can go off and like discuss it separately and bring back their stuff, which is this like think, pair, share. There are ways to harvest ideas and just, yeah, many different ways to like get folks active, interested, engaged in what's happening. I mean, I think you all have probably felt throughout the Zoom era that like, yeah, sometimes when meetings aren't ran well or just like, you know, ineffective, it really is draining. Like as we are all stepping further into like being cooperative stewards and, you know, as we're starting to like facilitate meetings and like help like set goals and move towards them, it's important to, you know, start thinking about facilitation techniques, being aware of some of the things other folks have noticed, and yeah, just try and, you know, move a little bit different so we're not perpetuating issues of the past. So prompt number 2 for today is giving us one lesson learned from this facilitation in motion handout. It's about 4 pages. Would you like to add anything to it?
No, I was just thinking about, you know, people that might have a similar experience of noticing different, few different qualities that, you know, they might fluctuate towards. And I know for me, understanding, you know, the complexity of you know, introverting, that I might associate myself with some of these facilitation traits, gives me a introspective way to look at it when I'm viewing it in one of my partners or somebody I'm working with. So I think this is a great tool to be reflective, but also to kind of check yourself when you're in the role of leading a meeting or, you know, a conversation in your co-op, because you can identify, you know, where someone else is as well, and you'll know what you needed or what you would prefer. Let's say for the slacker trait, you know, I understand for my slacker times, I need accountability. I need to be, you know, brought up to speed in a direct way. So if you're dealing with somebody and you feel like they associate with that, you be like, okay, let me try to go about it the way that I would, you know, want to be communicated with, and vice versa if it was the dominant person. So this is a great tool to be respectful and know how to align yourself when you're in one of these roles, but also how to come at and communicate with one of your partners or one of your cooperative owners when you identify the roles that they fall into. So yeah, this is a great little exercise, and I hope you guys are able to take from it as much as I was able to take from it too, and Brother Greg as well.
Sure, thank you. And yeah, you're reminding me of like, I guess earlier on when we were doing like the taking the war out of our words or other things, you know, we've been kind of focusing on self-awareness, because once we have that self-awareness, we can empathize when we like see that in others. And it's not necessarily like, like this person and their blank trait. It's like, oh, like we kind of got this same thing. Let's try and work through it, you know, like coming at it from that like understanding perspective. Yeah, because just as Ted said, like, you know, I think we can all maybe oscillate between those like quote negative unquote traits, right? And once we like know that, you know, that happens for us, we can easily recognize that in others, but like, yeah, have a little bit more compassion. So yeah, prompt number one is like checking out that video and saying which of the 5 traits in the video you tend to be and which you have the most problem with. The second prompt, give us one lesson learned from the facilitation in motion handout, which is from Aorta. And yeah, I mean, that's basically it for today. I pray you all, you know, find value in these, you know, readings. And tomorrow we should be having some like Q&As or yeah, some kind of panel discussion with cooperatives and collectives about their meeting practices. And you all can, you know, start asking questions about, you know, the things that we've been learning, as well as the things we're going to be heading towards. That's all I've got for you. Really, you know, we're always down to hear or talk through, you know, what you're learning. So we'll leave a little bit of space right now for that. Yeah, otherwise we will, you know, pack it up and see each other tomorrow.
I would just say that the video was really helpful to watch. As Brother Ted was saying, it's like helpful to see like what role or what do you identify as a facilitator, because you could be like all those things at different times. And I guess the goal would be to like how to have like a more balanced approach. And I've read through some Aorta material, and it actually they actually have a lot of like reflective questions, especially like if a meeting isn't going well or something like that. They have questions on like how can they be better. You know, they have things like direct feedback loops, things that you can create to have a better work environment. And actually recently, in the last 3 or 4 months, I was participating in this program called Cultural Catalyst Lab. And there are folks from like all over the world that came together like every Friday morning. And the whole practice was about facilitation, the needs list, and going through internal family systems. So like what folks might be dealing with and how do you facilitate or help a person get through things that they're going through. So it's just interesting to know like the different styles of facilitation and what your comfort level's at. So thank y'all for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for reflecting and sharing about the Cultural Catalyst Lab. That sounds cool. I want to check that out.
Yeah, definitely look it up. I think it should be kind of created out here. Well, it is out here, but just the type of community, because I was like the only Black woman on the entire call. But it was cool though. You know, like you meet different people. They broke it up in different cohorts. So you and then you have a pot. So like a session for everybody. And then you'll on like every other Friday, you'll meet with your pod, which is a group of 2 to 3 people. And you're just kind of going over the facilitation material or other topics that y'all want to talk about. So like for my group, I was in a group with someone that I'm in a tiny home collective with. And there was this guy from like Seattle who owned like a bike company, and he was living in Colombia. And then, but he was interested in like the tiny home thing. So our pod was like geared around our project of building sustainable housing in the Bay Area. But yeah, it's really dope, and it should be like a culture that's created out here, especially for us to kind of get to know each other and like work and weave communities.
Thank you, Jamila. Yeah, definitely we'll look into that. Would either of the other two, do y'all have anything to share or comment on? You know, no pressure, but the floor is yours if you want it.
So the quiet one, that's me. That's totally me. And as you're saying, does anybody else want to share? I'm like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's happening in like real time. Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, I always thought that wasn't a thing. I didn't think that was like an issue. I thought the loud person being demanding is the issue, and like there's no other issues but that one, and then everybody else should probably be observant and be quiet. I thought that wasn't an issue. So you guys are bringing it to the table like, no, this is something that isn't a level of opportunity, something that can be looked at and altered, as well as the other person, and they exist in the same realm. So I'm glad that came in full perspective this morning, and thank you for that.
Asha, that's wonderful. Yeah, it does happen in real time where you're like about to say something or not say something. You're like, oh, yeah, that's really insightful. Thank you. All right, Blas has been adding into the chat. He's going to be quiet today. So yeah, really appreciate y'all for showing up. And yeah, we're going to keep going. The payment snafus should be fixed by tomorrow. And yeah, just thank y'all a lot. Happy to be doing this work with you. Take care.
Thank y'all too.